If she isn't having fun, you need to stop. Like, stop now. Stop now, right now, and figure that out. Don't just keep having sex that isn't good for her, because it gets harder and harder to fix down the road.
Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. Ever play the game Two Truths and a Lie? A person makes three statements, and you guess which two are factual and which one is false. Well, we get to play that game today on our episode. It's going to be fun. My guest today is Sheila Wray Gregoire and her husband, Keith, and they're returning to the Get Your Marriage On podcast today. They completed extensive research, surveying thousands of Christian couples, and recently published their findings in a new book called The Marriage You Want. I've read this book, and I think it's really well done, so I invited the Gregoires onto the podcast to share it with you. It's going to be fun. We talk about a lot of topics, sexual intimacy, of course, finances, sharing the mental load, and other things in your marriage. I hope you walk away from this episode with a few new insights and fresh ideas to improve intimacy and connection in your own marriage. And if you'd like a little extra help, myself and my team would love to meet with you and coach with you in our next level Get Your Marriage On program. Sheila and Keith, it is such an honor to have you back on the Get Your Marriage On podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having us back.
Yeah, doing all right. It's nice to be here.
It's so good. And now I got a copy of this amazing book that you just published, The Marriage You Want. And this is why I wanted to invite you on my podcast. I love all of your books. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you on my podcast is 8 years ago, on my own journey with my wife and I, the very first Christian sex-related book we ever read was The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex. We read it together. Well, I should say, it came in the mail. We started reading together for a few chapters, and my wife dozed off, and I stayed up. I binge read the whole book in one entire night. I finished around 3 or 4 a.m., and I was so on fire. This is so good. And you just have this style about you. You're just so good for pro-marriage, strengthening marriages, and this is what we get to talk about today. I am so excited to have you here. You've had a tremendous influence on my life, so I'm really honored to have you here.
Thank you, Dan. That's great.
So tell me the story, how this book came to be.
Okay, well, it's a little bit of a long story. Can I do this one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So I had been blogging and writing about sex and marriage, including the first edition of The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex for like a decade. And I kept writing healthy stuff. People seemed to like it, but they kept getting stuck. And I didn't know why. If I'm putting out all this healthy stuff, what's the problem? Why can't people get over their problems? And then one afternoon in 2019, I was procrastinating because I had a headache and I didn't want to work. And I was on what was then called Twitter, and people were debating whether they needed love or respect. And they were referring to Emerson Eggerich's best-selling Christian marriage book, Love and Respect. And I thought, I have that book. This is a great way to procrastinate. So I went and I got it, and I opened to the sex chapter, since I mostly write about sex, and I freaked out because it said, if your husband is typical, he has a need that you don't have. The need was just for physical release, and if he didn't get physical release, he'd come under satanic attack. And there wasn't a single word about women's pleasure or about intimacy or anything. And long story short, but that led us on this journey of becoming a real research powerhouse. And so we did the largest survey of Christian women that's ever been done. Just looking at how some of the common teachings in Christian books have impacted women's marital and sexual satisfaction, and how we can get back to what God intended. So that was the Great Sex Rescue. And then we updated the Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex. We wrote the Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. We wrote She Deserves Better, about how teenage girls are often treated in church. But then everyone was saying, okay, but now what do we do about marriage in general? So we sort of feel like we've conquered sex, but, but we wanted to take a step back and say, but what about the healthy underpinnings of relationships? And so that's what The Marriage You Want is. It's our fourth study that we've done, 7,000 people, including 1,300 match pairs, which was really fun. And we're just looking at what makes a healthy marriage.
That is so good. Funny thing about this story is you had the book Love and Respect, but you had never read it before. It was on your
I was
shelf.
just so scared of plagiarizing, so I had all these books in my closet. But I even recommended it when we would speak at marriage conferences, because I thought, well, it's a bestseller, it must be good.
Right.
You know,
And it has a
like,
great title. It's catchy. Love and
yeah,
respect.
like they
Of
love
course.
Jesus, I
Doesn't
love Jesus.
everyone want love?
Yeah,
and
like we
respect?
must all be saying the same thing, but then we weren't. And I thought, oh wow, maybe this is why people stay stuck, because it isn't enough just to give healthy information. You also have to debunk the unhealthy stuff. And so
Gotcha.
that's a lot of what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I bring is I'm a physician, right? So doctors work in the world of evidence, right? We can't just prescribe
Yes.
drugs if we think they're going to work. Like we have to prove they work, right? And so that's we bought that whole idea of, all truth is God's truth. If we can show something in the world works, then that should give us an idea of what God's trying to tell us marriage should look like, as opposed to some person in authority saying, this is what a godly marriage looks like. We don't care if that works in the field or not. We're very much, well, if it works in real life, it must be the way God designed it. So that's kind of the way we look at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why survey so many people? So many Christians?
To get a large enough sample size so that we can be statistically significant. I don't know. No, because we just wanted answers. We really wanted it not to be based on our own opinion.
Yeah.
That's really important. So you're showing this is what works. Great.
Yeah.
So what I love about the book is you do debunk a lot of the things that we may have heard in church or other books along the way, like the one that you mentioned. So I thought we'd have some fun today and play 2 truths and a lie. What do you say?
Okay.
And here's how it works. You tell me 3 statements. 2 of them are going to be truths and 1 of them is going to be a lie. And I have to guess which one's the lie.
All right, so here we go. Going to bed at the same time can seriously boost your marital and sexual satisfaction.
Okay.
If you want to have a good marriage and sex life, it is so important to prioritize how often you have sex with your spouse.
Okay.
And the biggest detractor of marital satisfaction is when mental load and housework isn't shared.
You got me stumped.
She's good.
Yeah. Wow. For sure, the mental load. I live that. So I think that's definitely true.
Yep.
I'm not sure about going to bed together at the same time. Or is it frequency? Because a great sex life is nothing to do with actual frequency. Although it takes a lot of communication and planning, I don't think it has to do with frequency. So I'm going to go on frequency.
Yeah. Yay.
Good for you.
All right.
That's good.
Great. So tell us more. How'd you come to that conclusion?
Well, it's funny. I opened the sex chapter in The Marriage You Want. And by the way, writing 1 chapter on sex when you have already written 4 books on sex is really hard.
I bet. Yeah.
So if you want to know everything we think about sex, but in short form, it's in The Marriage You Want. But we opened it by saying, don't prioritize sex in your marriage. Prioritize the ingredients to great sex.
Yes. That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's true in my own life too.
Yeah.
And how'd you come to that conclusion? What was the study like?
Well, here's the problem. Frequency. All that frequency tells you is how often he is reaching orgasm. Because, we have a 48-point orgasm gap. So 95% of men almost always reach orgasm in a given sexual encounter compared to just 48% of Christian women. So that's a huge orgasm gap, 47-point orgasm gap. And just because you're having sex doesn't mean that sex is necessarily going to make you feel closer. 18% of women in our first survey said that their primary emotion after sex was feeling used. And so for them, they would feel closer to their husbands not having sex than having sex.
Right. They're worse off.
Right, exactly. So we need to figure out, how do we have sex that actually benefits the relationship? Mm-hmm. And that means that she has to matter too. And often we think, well, if sex isn't happening, it's because she doesn't want it. But actually, if she doesn't want it, we should treat that with curiosity. Because, sex is awesome.
There might be good judgment. Right. It might be good judgment. She doesn't want sex. Right.
Yeah. Because sex is awesome. Why would she not want something that's awesome? And so then you need to say, well, then maybe it's not awesome for her. So what else is going on?
Right.
Right.
And just to give you one simple example, we took a look at the women who said that their sexual desire level was really low. And we asked them 3 questions, just 3 questions. Okay. Do you orgasm usually when you have sex? Do you have sexual pain? And do you feel emotionally close during sex? And those 3 questions alone explained 85% of women's low desire.
Mm-hmm. Why would one want to participate if it's painful, if it's not pleasurable? And they don't feel closer to their spouse as a result.
Exactly.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of teaching, particularly in the church, has been trying to treat the symptom instead of the disease, right? So there's this idea that there's a crisis, that we're not having enough sex, so therefore women have more sex instead of saying why and what are the reasons for it, because that takes a lot more work. It takes a lot of vulnerability on our part as men. It takes a lot of laying down entitlement. It takes a lot of saying, I want to put you first. Those things are challenging, especially in a society that encourages you to, feel this is a right or an entitlement to you as a man. And giving that up can be challenging for a lot of men, but that's what you have to do if you want to have a good sex life. There's no other way around it.
Yep.
I like that. There was a season in my marriage where it was all about the number and hitting a goal. I'm an achiever kind of a person, I want to conquer. I have goals and whatever. And it was all about did we have it? Did we do it? What's our streak? What's the number on the scoreboard? And it wasn't about love. It wasn't about tenderness. It wasn't about closeness. I think that matters way, way more. It's harder to measure, of course.
Yeah.
I think that's so good.
I would just say and we're not trying to say that frequent sex doesn't matter, because, when couples are really enjoying sex, then having it frequently can really benefit your marriage and can make you feel great and make you feel very close. So we're not against that. We just are really encouraging people to see that frequency is not the foundation. Frequency is the result of something else. And so if sex is great, then sure. Say, all right, you know what? Are we getting lazy? Are we getting into bad habits? Are we just watching Netflix at night and then collapsing in bed? Maybe we need to turn the TV off earlier in the evening. Let's spend some time together. Those are great conversations to have when sex is great, But if sex isn't great, then we're kind of being great. So we're not saying it doesn't matter. We're just saying we got to do it in the right order.
Got it. You mentioned those 3 factors that are common with those with very low desire or don't enjoy sex. Have you uncovered any factors that are part of optimal sexual experiences?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones is just that women reach orgasm. When women reach orgasm frequently, they tend to want sex more often. And there's been a couple of studies that show that your first sexual experience really matters. So if she reaches orgasm her first time having sex, her libido over time tends to be about the same as her partner's. So it's that first time matters. And for a lot of women, the first time was terrible. And so your body feels like this isn't for me. And it takes a long time to get over that. It's far more difficult to teach your body, no, wait, this actually is for you, when it's learned that it isn't for you, than it is to teach your body this is for you from the beginning. And so I would just say to couples, if she isn't having fun, you need to stop. Stop now. Stop now, right now, and figure that out. Don't just keep having sex that isn't good for her, because it gets harder and harder to fix down the road.
Yeah. Because you just kind of solidify in her mind, this is not something for me. This is only something for him. And that's going to kill your sex drive in nothing else. So you just can't live in that kind of a world. So
that's good. So if you're in a marriage where she doesn't orgasm as frequently, hit the reset button and figure this out.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of the theme of the whole book. It's the marriage has to work for both of you. So, if things are not going well, as opposed to a lot of advice out there, which is figure out who's not living up to their roles and make sure they do them, which is frankly what we see a lot. We challenge people to ask questions. Why are we in this condition? Why have things gotten to be the way they are? How can we do something that's going to change the dynamic so that we both do better, that we both become healthier, that we both experience what God wants for our marriage together? If it has to be you lose so I can win, you've already lost. Yeah. It needs to be that something that works for both of you. So, sex is just one example. We talk a lot of ways about how you always want this to be something that causes us both to grow and both to benefit, and something that becomes good for both of us.
That's really good.
Messed it up.
Hey, let's do another 2 truths and a lie.
Okay,
so this is my turn, I guess.
Okay, do it. Go for it.
Okay, when couples divide up household tasks, about half of them split them 50-50, and the rest, the wife does them all. That's the first one. The second one is women are not better at multitasking than men. And the third one is that one of the ways men can make their marriage better is to encourage their wife to get them lists so that they can get stuff done.
Definitely the third one is a lie.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that one was too easy. I thought that one was hard because the middle one, that women are better multitaskers, everyone believes that, but it's not true. So I thought I'd say something that sounds like a lie.
Yeah, they've done experiments where they put both men and women in a totally new environment where there's multiple things going on at one time, and women are just as bad at it as men. So it's not that women are better multitasking biologically, it's just that they have more practice at home.
Yeah, so what happens
would
is
make
society,
sense.
society demands women learn to multitask, and so they're just as frazzled as you are when you try to multitask. It's just they learn how to cope with it. So,
yeah.
And man, multitasking, that's one way to really make it mentally tired.
Yes.
Making the load even worse.
Yes.
Well, and that's why the list thing is not effective, right? Because you're absolutely right. Following what's on a list is not the way to grow your marriage, because executing the things that are on that list and just doing those tasks, that's not the tiring part. It's the figure out what needs to get done. It's the organizing. It's all the stuff behind the scenes that really weighs on you mentally. So if you want to be a husband that's proactive in your marriage, you should be making the lists, not asking for lists. And a lot of guys just aren't trained how to do that, and they don't even know where to start. So they give up. And that's another thing that's kind of sad is like studies have shown that, for instance, there was one study we quote in the book where in a certain town, the factory shut down, and so the men were all at home now, and the thought was therefore the household labor would become more equally shared. But the sociologist studying this town found that the men all got out of doing the housework because they said, I'm just not as good at it as she is. So you can claim that I don't know how to do this, and that kind of gets you out of doing it. If you want to have a marriage that's really successful, lean into that and say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to learn, and I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to know how the house runs, and I'm going to be able to figure these things out, and I'm not going to have to depend on you to give me a list to know what needs to be done to make this household run.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about you two, and this is something you both intuitively do really well in your own marriage. Is there a story or an example you can give me about an aspect where you realize, hey, we do this really well?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple. I mean, I think the one that I think of is just the fact that over our marriage, we've just changed back and forth in terms of who's responsible for what, based upon what's happened in our marriage. Like when I was in medical school and then in residency, I was working over 100 hours a week, and so I didn't wash a single dish. Sheila did absolutely everything around the house. But then as things changed, all the way to now where I'm kind of getting into
more than I do.
Semi-retired, I've taken on a lot more of that. And I do more than she does and we just do that naturally because we do what works for our marriage, as opposed to, falling into these prescribed roles that the husband does this and the wife does that. We are constantly evaluating what is functioning and not functioning, what's working and not working, what's fair, and just kind of making decisions as a couple, what we need to be doing to make sure that everything happens that needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that works really well is if everyone just owns different aspects of what goes into running a household. And if you just own the whole thing, then your spouse never has to think about it. And that is such a tremendous gift. Like, for example, we're in Canada, and so, it's the law that boys and girls play hockey, right? Like, it's just, you have to. But anyway, but if she says to him, hey, can you take Johnny to hockey practice? That sounds like what she's asking is, can you put Johnny and maybe his equipment in the car, drive him to hockey practice, and then drive him home? But there's a whole lot more that goes into hockey practice. There's also making sure that his uniform or his whatever it's called, is clean every week. Maybe last week you borrowed something from Benjamin's older brother and you need to return it. Maybe it's your turn to bring snack for the team meeting. And so that needs to get ready. There's fundraising that you have to do. So everyone's got to collect all the money from grandpa and all the aunts and uncles. Maybe little Johnny isn't getting on with his coach very well, and someone's got to go and navigate that relationship. Or maybe there's some fighting happening with some of the other kids on the team, and someone's got to navigate that relationship. Like hockey is all of that. Right? Making sure he's got the right size skates. Like it's all of that. And so if he were to own hockey, he's not just owning putting Johnny in the car and driving. He's owning, okay, I got to make sure we got a snack. I got to make sure I bring the Tupperware back. I got to make sure I've got collected all the money for fundraising. Like, I'm doing the entire thing. That's a lot that she now doesn't have to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Soup to nuts, the whole thing.
Absolutely. And a lot of times guys get into a real trap where, you know, you're in a marriage and you know things are going poorly, but you don't know why. Because as a guy, I'm doing everything she's asking me to do. She's giving me the lists and I'm doing everything that's on the list, and you feel like a hero, but you just are not seeing everything that's going in behind the scenes. So taking it from the very beginning to the very end and actually caring about all those other steps, you know, that's really a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah. And you know, that's the one big surprising finding that we had in our survey. Like, we kind of knew what we were going to find. We were very relieved when we did find it, because you're always nervous. Like, what if the data doesn't show what we think it's going to show? But it pretty much did. But this one was really surprising, the magnitude of it.
Yeah.
So we knew that mental load was important. We didn't realize how important it was, because we measured marital satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 100. And most people are, you know, 70 to 90. Like, most people are relatively happy. And so small changes can make a big difference. And if you have money stress in your marriage, that's a 5-point change, which is significant. You know, if you go from having sex once a month to having sex several times a week, that's a 10-point change where you're doing better. But when you go from doing 50% of the housework to doing 90% of the housework or more, that's a 30-point shift.
30 points in the negative, I guess. If
Yeah.
you're doing far
Like,
more
that
than
is
yeah.
huge. And this is really the big problem. Like, a lot of the reasons that women don't have a libido is because they're overwhelmed by this. And if you have to, if as a woman, you're looking after your husband's mom, like, you have to remember her husband's mom's birthday. You have to buy your husband's sister a birthday present. You have to make your husband a list. You have to call for your husband's doctor's appointments. Then your husband is kind of like one of your children.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so not sexy.
No, absolutely not.
That's really not sexy.
Yeah. As opposed to a person who takes initiative, knows what needs to get done, and gets it done. I mean, isn't that what we should both be functioning partners in this relationship?
Yeah.
I read the book Fair Play a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's a best-selling book on this topic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we reference it in the book too,
Yeah, good. And my wife and I sat down. We got a whole pad of sticky notes.
Yep.
Kind of like this.
Yeah.
And with the Sharpie, just wrote, okay, every aspect of our relationship, of our household, let's figure this out. We wrote them all down. We had about 100 sticky notes, and then we have them on the wall. And okay, let's see how we can divide this up. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, if there was 100 sticky notes, 50 go here and 50 go there, because of life. And like what you said earlier, Keith, you were in medical school. There's seasons of life when you're going to go all in on this thing because it's the most important. But it's about teamwork here. How can we divide this up and communicate better? And one of the biggest things that I realized in my own marriage is, and I'm so sorry to admit this, I realized I treated my wife as less valuable than me. Her time was less valuable than mine. Mm-hmm. Because here I am, I work, I earn X amount per hour. She's at home, she earns less than that per hour. Therefore, the more menial task should go to her and the more important task should go to me. I had a little bit of self-importance in there. I didn't realize it. Mm-hmm. And once we really started having this conversation, and I'm like, holy cow, no, that's not right. She earns just as much money as I do. If we're going to, like, if we were to get divorced, it'd be 50-50 split anyway, right? Like, her contribution should matter just as much as my contribution does. It's not that one contribution is more than another. Once I made that big mental shift, it was the biggest thing that helped us with our mental load in our home, because an hour of her time is just as valuable as an hour of my time. And an hour of her contribution is just as much. Start with equal footing, and that made a big shift for us.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think that one of the big markers you can know if you're doing that well is if you both have the same amount of downtime. If one of you gets a lot of time to relax and the other one gets no time to relax, you need to renegotiate.
Yep.
Right. All right, let's conclude our talk about money, shall we? What did you learn in your study about money?
You know, we found that it mattered But what really matters more is how you navigate those kinds of conflicts. Like, are you actually able to talk about things when you're bothered by things? And that's true not just with money, but with anything in your marriage. Like, basically, having more money does tend to have happier marriages. So, yay! I mean, I don't think that is
Right.
I don't think that
It
that
makes
is
it makes it
degree.
easier. It makes it
rocket
easier.
science.
Right?
But,
Yeah.
when it comes to how are we going to navigate the problems in our marriage, like if someone is spending too much and it really needs to be reined in, or if someone says, you're sticking too much to a budget and you never let us have any fun and we do still have to live, how do you have those conversations? And that's actually the more important question, not just like, is money an issue, but it's how do we let our spouse know when I'm bothered by something? Like, this is bothering me, because some people are really good at that and some people are not. And some people are really good at accepting it and some people are not. And part of the problem is, look, if you're married, what is it that you want? You want your spouse to totally know you and still love you and accept you. And you want to totally know your spouse and still love them and accept them.
Right.
You can't get to that point if you can't share what's bothering you. Because if you can't share what's bothering you, your spouse doesn't really know you. So we have to be able to talk about the stuff that's bugging us. We don't need to do that in a mean way. We don't need to punish them, but we do need to be able to get to the point where we can just talk about stuff. And that's a skill that a lot of people don't have.
I heard this marriage advice yesterday. You need to learn how to talk about the things you're not talking about before you have to talk about it.
Yes, that's very good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there an example from your own marriage where you've had to discuss something difficult?
Oh, wow. I think I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but I just know that part of our growth was, for me at least anyway, was learning to be mature enough to not see a person bringing something forward as a criticism of me as a person. So if things aren't working in our marriage and Sheila's concerned and she wants to address an issue, I naturally had a tendency to feel like I was being attacked as opposed to, bringing this as an issue. And we talk a lot in the book about how to work through that. But a lot of it in the end is really just becoming mature enough to say, hey, we're a team. If you're bringing up a problem, it's because the team could do better. and how do we as approach? Okay, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I am leaving my dirty underwear around the house too much, or whatever the issue is, right? Just okay, yeah. I don't feel attacked. We got to figure a way to make this work better, or whatever the issue is, and just being able to do that. And I think that's the thing that helped me.
And a lot of this stuff really relates to just emotional maturity and emotional connection. Because, all of us enter marriage with baggage, right? Like, we all have stuff in our past that's going to color how we see things. It's like our own stories, right? And so learning to recognize your own story, learning to recognize, okay, I feel attacked right now. My spouse isn't actually attacking me, but what happened was when I was a kid, every time I did anything wrong, people would give me the silent treatment, or they would tell me that I'm worthless. And so whenever I hear anything negative, I feel like I go immediately into fight and flight mode. I feel panicked. And that is something I need to recognize about myself and learn not how to react that way, And so we give a lot of really practical things in chapter 8 about how to calm down our nervous system so that we can have these kinds of conversations. Because I think a lot of times people forget we're really complex beings. And we do react to things in ways that we even don't want to react to them that way. But this is, both of our histories are coming to the fore here. And and so how do we as adults and as a couple take a deep breath and put a pause on some of the panicky feelings that we're having, or some of the anger feelings that we're having, and realize that's not actually about what's going on right now, but I need to learn to deal with those things so that I can deal with what's going on right now.
And that's one of the things that, I haven't seen a lot in other Christian marriage books about the idea that to have a healthy marriage, we need to both try to be more healthy people. And that's what we really lean into at the end of the book.
It just seems so obvious.
Yeah. But you don't see it talked about very much, at least in my experience. And we also have a study guide for the book too, if you want to do it like in a church small group or things like that as well too. And each chapter in that has specific exercises that are that are designed to help you learn how to have these kind of conversations, how to do the sort of calming yourself, kind of put a distance between your emotional reaction and how you respond, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That is so good. In fact, I believe in that concept you're teaching so much, and I talk about it on my podcast frequently enough. A listener gifted me this sign. It's called "Calm the Heck Down."
Yeah.
It's a phrase I use all the time, and I don't mean it ever to tell your spouse you need to calm the heck down. It's I call it calming the heck down inside yourself.
Yes.
Dr. John Gottman talks about when people are emotionally agitated or stimulated. He uses the term flooded.
Yes.
You have a 0% chance of solving the conflict.
Yeah.
0% chance. Because solving conflicts require the thinking part of your brain. And that goes offline when you're emotionally stimulated. So these exercises and practices, you need to take it seriously and practice calming that down so that you can have a productive relationship.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Important. That's good. Well, I'm glad you're bringing so much truth to an audience that absolutely needs to hear this. So you're doing great work. As we conclude, is there any final thoughts or nuggets you want to leave our listeners?
I think the big thing is just to remember that marriage is not about getting your needs met, and it's not about getting your spouse's needs met. It's about getting the couple's needs met. And if we can get that kind of a perspective that, hey, it's not just about what I need, it's what the marriage needs. And the marriage needs you to be healthy and whole. And the marriage needs your spouse to be healthy and whole. And the marriage needs you guys to have fun. And the marriage needs a great sex life. And the marriage needs all of these things. But if we can start looking at what the marriage needs more than just what I want, we will be so much healthier. Because the key really is partnership and teamwork. It's seeing that we're in this together. And that's just what we're hoping for, is that people can get that partnership mindset. Because it really does. It's beautiful. And it creates wonderful marriages.
That's good. How about you, Keith?
Oh, I couldn't say it any better than that. That's the wrap, Dan. Come on. That was awesome.
Very good. Thank you very much. Where can people go to learn more about your work, find your books, and everything?
Yeah, so The Marriage You Want is everywhere books are sold. Our website is baremarriage.com. That's BARE. And our podcast is Bare Marriage. It's out every Thursday. And if you go to baremarriage.com, you'll see links to all my social media. I have fun on Instagram where I fix all kinds of terrible quotes all the time. And we have lots of videos out and stuff like that too. So just go to baremarriage.com and you'll find links to everything.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please share it, along with our apps, Intimately Us and Just Between Us, with your married friends. I promise they will thank you for life. If you want a more meaningful, sexual, and intimate connection in your marriage, I invite you to check out my Get Your Marriage On program. Over 100 couples have said this program packs tremendous value and has helped their intimacy grow to the next level. Now, go get your marriage on.